At this time, I have the honor to present to you the moral leader of our nation. I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism.
All right, a very good evening, America, Chicago. Salongo Chigundu is my name. And tonight we are having a conversation in reaction to what happened in Minneapolis yesterday. This spontaneously started out of a group chat when it was announced that there's a verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. Everybody was on edge. We didn't know what to expect. Things could have gone the other way. So when the verdict came in, guilty on all three counts, on all three charges, there was a huge sigh of relief. I don't think it was just only for us in Chicago, but the whole nation. It was clear that even law enforcement didn't know what to expect because they did deploy. So it was a huge sigh of relief. And then everybody, I assume, at least for me personally, the next thing that popped in my mind was, what next? What does this mean? Meanwhile, in the group chat, there was a spontaneous conversation that broke out. A heated debate ensued. And it is at that point that we decided, why don't we take this out of the group chat and just have a group conversation? And I am so glad that my offer was accepted by a panel of young and old who are actually involved in this heated debate. I am happy that they accepted to come here and be my guests. And I'm also happy to introduce them to you one at a time. And then from there, I'll give them a chance again to re-echo. What was their immediate reaction when the verdict came in? And then from there, I'll hand it off to Elizabeth, who is the Youth Affairs Director in UCIGC, or the Uganda community in Greater Chicago. She was right in the middle of this conversation. She, just like everybody else on this panel you're going to see, has strong opinions about some of these issues. And she never shies away from speaking up and stating her mind. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome this panel of Chicagoans. Yes. To begin with, let me introduce Elizabeth herself. Elizabeth, like I said, is the Youth Affairs Director in the Ugandan community in Greater Chicago. Very, very bright, very engaged in the community, and she's got opinions. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Next, let me bring in Mukisa. Mukisa Chibaya is also very active member of the Ugandan community in Greater Chicago for a long time. She served also in a position of leadership. I think something must have happened to Mukisa's camera. I will jump to Kenneth and then I'll be back. Kenneth Walube, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Kenneth is also a longtime member of the Ugandan community in Greater Chicago, served in executive positions, but I also one time went all the way to serve in Ugandan North American Association. Maybe when he introduces himself, he will talk about a little bit about that. But Kenneth, welcome to the show.
You?
Mokisa is back. Mokisa, I think something happened while I was introducing you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Excuse my technical
Mokisa, as I was
difficulties.
saying, is a longtime member of the Ugandan community in Greater Chicago. She served in executive positions, and she has got strong views about the subject matter tonight, the topic tonight, and look forward to what she's got to say. Mokisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, now, O'Neill. O'Neill, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
O'Neill is also a longtime member of the Chicago community. He too has some real strong views about this, and he never minces his words. He gets into it, he will speak up his mind. I'm looking forward to hearing what he's got to say. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And then lastly, here still staying in the Midwest, let me introduce to you John Mutiaba. John Mutiaba is a resident of Minnesota, where this whole thing was going on, and we're looking forward to hearing what he actually thinks, but actually observed. What was this like in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, when this verdict came out as it did? John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I look forward to discussions.
Okay. Now, let me, I'm going to give each one of you to give an opening remark. And then thereafter, I will hand this off to the moderator, our moderator tonight, who is Elizabeth. Let me start with Elizabeth herself. Elizabeth, why don't you give us your opening remark? What went through your mind? First, you can reintroduce yourself. I introduced you briefly, but feel free to add on to that and then give us your opening remark.
Simply put, my name's Elizabeth, and I live in the Chicago area. I've been living here for about 16 years now, and I'm proud to be a Chicago area person and UCIGC member, current member, and youth leader. When what happened with George Floyd, when that took place, I felt sad, more like I couldn't do anything. I felt powerless. I felt sad. I felt distraught when I heard the bad news, because I am a Black person, and the future of my offspring will be looked at as Black children. So, going with that, I'm happy that this is one form of justice that we have all been a witness to, and hopefully we'll keep getting more of these handled. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome again. And thank you for accepting to moderate this conversation this evening. All right, moving on. Let me go to Kenneth. Kenneth, why don't you reintroduce you again? I talked about how you served in leadership in locally here and in UNA. I think a lot of people would want to know exactly what am I talking about.
Sure. So like Robert has told you, my name is Kenneth Walube. I have been a resident of Chicago for about, 7 years now. And I've had the opportunity to serve on the UCIGC executive as treasurer. And I also served in UNA as the the male youth representative. However, I'm now I'm no longer serving in those positions right now. So I'm just I kind of watch from the bleachers right now. So, but that's that's kind of my background with the community here.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Welcome once again. And quickly jumping on to John. John, welcome once again. Good to have you, as always. Thanks for joining. And why don't you go ahead and reintroduce yourself real quick and give us your opening remarks.
Yes, thank you very much, Salongo. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share my views and ideas regarding the verdict that was read out yesterday. I have been in Midwest for several years, many years, and I've driven to Chicago many times since I've been here. In fact, my son is going to college in Chicago. So I have close ties with the people of Chicago. However, as you understand, everything that happened, it was right in my backyard when I first came to Minnesota. That's about the area that I lived in. And so that's why some of my remarks yesterday was in consideration of that. So I look forward to having a debate similar to what we had. And I know, maybe we'll change some minds, maybe not. But I hope that some people will be inspired and will follow some of our experiences. We are the elders and we've seen some stuff and we know what we can change, what we cannot change, and how to go about positioning yourself for success in America. Thank you very much.
Well put. Thank you very much. Good to have you. And we're looking forward to your wise counsel. All right. Elizabeth, it's my time now to hand this off to you. You are right in the middle of what was a spontaneous but heated debate that started right after the verdict came in. I'm going to hand this off to you, and then I'll be doing the technology thing in the background here. Thank you all very much for joining us. If you have to invite anybody, I did share the link in the group chat. So please feel free to share and let others know that we're having this conversation. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Okay, guys. So thank you all for being here first and foremost. My question is generally directed towards everyone, and it regards a question that Kenneth posted that began this conversation. So Kenneth's question, which started the conversation, was the act of Derek Chauvin kneeling on a police on a black man, George Floyd's neck, was that a sign of negligence, or was it not negligence? What was it? Let's talk about how we feel about it. You can start it off, Kenneth.
Okay, so yeah, that was my question, and the reason I asked that question is because I saw that everybody was kind of celebrating, which is a very valid reaction, given on what has happened in the past. I'm not here to say that Derek Chauvin doesn't deserve any punishment for whatever he did. However, I just wanted to kind of stimulate people's minds. Was this really his intention to kill this guy, or was he just negligent while doing his duty? Personally, I'll say I think that Derek Chauvin was negligent. I don't think that he intended to kill this guy. I mean, being a police officer, you just can't kill somebody with intention. You can kill somebody because you're negligent, or you can kill somebody because because you have to react really, really fast. But I don't think that I don't think he wanted to kill the guy. That's just my personal opinion. But then again, I know everybody will say, he knelt on that guy's neck for more than 9 minutes, which people will say, oh, maybe he wanted to kill him. But we have to look at the context of the surroundings as well. I mean, first of all, Derek Chauvin was training other officers that day. And the other thing is there was a whole crowd around. When you're a police officer and there's a whole crowd of people, you don't know what they're gonna do. It's very possible for you to get caught up in the whole situation. So I guess that's my point of view.
Okay, let's move on. Thank you there for sharing, Kenneth. That was very insightful of your opinion about police officers and their responsibilities. Now we can move on to Mukisa. What is your opinion? What are your feelings about this, about the case and the question that was asked?
Wow. First of all, I'd like to apologize for everyone. I've been having a bit of technical difficulties, so I missed my whole introduction. To keep it short and sweet, I'm a child of the community, born and raised Southside, Westside Chicago. I was here before there was a community, been in Chicago my whole life. But to get to your question, I vehemently disagree. Derek Chauvin had intent to kill George Floyd on that day. And I say that mostly because Derek Chauvin is on record. Derek Chauvin had 19 complaints, 19, the number after 18 complaints. And he has been known, other Black men, other Latino men, other Native men are on record having complaints after Derek Chauvin. So I don't believe that it was negligence. So I think that he had intent to kill George Floyd that day. In terms of restraining him by the chokehold for the 9 minutes and the 29 seconds, that absolutely did not need to happen. He was already handcuffed on the ground. And we all saw that George Floyd was denied medical assistance in a timely fashion. So I do believe his killing was intentional. I don't believe that it was negligence, especially, like I said, given Mr. Chauvin's record. In my personal opinion, George Floyd didn't have to die, not only on that day. Derek Chauvin shouldn't have had a badge to even kill George Floyd. He should have been stopped. His badge should have been stripped. No pension should have been liable to him. He should have been dealt with in a timely manner, according to him, in terms of having that many complaints on record before Mr. Chauvin encountered George Floyd on that day.
All right. Thank you there, Mukisa, for your opinion and your feelings. Let's switch to Mr. O'Neill. Let's hear what you have to say regarding the question that was posted earlier.
Yeah, I do believe that there is no police officer that actually wakes up in the morning and goes to work thinking that he's going to encounter somebody to kill. But in this case, for Chauvin's case, I think if any of you had followed the court proceedings and kind of testimonies given by the experts, including the fellow police officers, Chauvin case was unique in a certain way, whereby he was given so many opportunities to not do what he was doing. Bystanders were there telling him, hey, you are killing somebody. And he was told by so many people, including the paramedics that was on site, saying, hey, somebody is going out. You have to get off him and put him out. He never took those opportunities. So in this case, yes, although cops don't wake up in the morning and say, well, let me go do some harm to some black guy or somebody on the street. I think some of their negligence in the way they handle these cases are subject to criminal punishments. And in this case, Chauvin, he was given so many opportunities by the bystanders and everybody yelling at him, hey, get off, the guy is dying, he can't breathe. And with all prior incidences of Eric Garner in New York, people dying from the same statement, I cannot breathe. I think Derek should have known better, being a senior police officer, that at that moment he had to get off Floyd. So my take is that it was a justified criminal case, and I think the verdict is also just.
Okay, thank you there, O'Neill, for that message. Seems like we have two people who are claiming for negligence of police officers. So I'm looking for Mr. John's opinion on this subject.
Well, thank you very, very much for the opportunity once again to address the people of Chicago and also anybody watching. I personally think that the verdict was justified, and I think that Mr. Chauvin, what he did there was very deliberate in trying to kill somebody. I know that maybe he didn't plan it. There was no deliberation for a long period of time that I want to kill somebody. But at the point when there was some resistance, he became unprofessional and decided that he got angry with the man, so he decided to take him out himself. I think that was very, very deliberate. He had his hands in the pocket, flagrant, knowing very well that there would be no repercussions. I think that that was a period when we had President Donald Trump, and that could have contributed to his feeling that there would be no repercussions because the way he did it was really bad. Now we just had another issue over here. Mr. Wright was killed. That seems more of a mistake. I don't want to say it's a mistake, but that can be explained. Someone could understand that because that's a quick reaction with a gun.
Pause real quick. We'll get back to that topic, Mr. John. Sorry to interrupt you, but we don't want to take the conversation.
You just wanted a response to say that this was justified and this was not negligence. This was a deliberate killing of a person. Thank you.
Yes, we will get back to that topic in a few. Now, I'm still on the topic of negligence, though. Do my panelists here it seems to me personally as though the negligence seems to be more targeted towards brown and black communities. So if that is true, in your opinions, who do you think bears the most responsibility for these acts of negligence on the cops' side? We're going to start off here with O'Neill.
Based on what you just asked, I think the most responsibility falls on the cops. They are sworn in to serve and protect the communities they live in. When they let people down, they've broken their oath. So in this case, I believe cops should be held at a higher standard than a regular citizen. They should know better because they go through training. And there's no citizen that walks out and says, hey, I had a training about how to deal with a certain individual. It's all based on their own personal experiences and how in the moment they feel they have to react in certain situations. But for cops, on a daily basis through their training, they're actually trained to deal with people of different kinds, good or bad, wild or not wild. It's their own responsibility for them to be able to calm down the situations and find better ways of at least performing some sort of de-escalation. In this case, I still think the responsibility falls on the cops.
Okay, so I have one more question for you, Mr. O'Neill. Well, piggybacking from what Mr. John had brought up about Mr. Wright's case, he mentioned that it was a mistake, which seems to be the story that goes around when cops murder Black and brown men. Everyone claims, oh, he was a mistake. Oh, it was an accident. Oh, he's human. Oh, he was fighting for his life. Do you think that him having that, all of us having opinions about police officers and them being scared, is that a justification for the murder of someone because a cop was scared?
Cops do make split decisions. They encounter a couple of things that are, in some cases, they're very stressful. They've seen a lot than what we normally see. And for them, in some cases, yes, they may justify their reaction. Maybe it may be lethal in the end, but it could be justified. But not always that when it comes to Black and brown, this thing has turned out to be very common, whereby Black and brown, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Lethal is the only way cops react to certain situations that are involving Black and brown people. So, yes, it's hard to tell what they go through in that moment and what goes on through their minds, but it's, in some cases it might be justified, but in this case I don't think it was.
Okay, Mr. John, yesterday you mentioned something about growing up in a neighborhood that was predominantly over monitored by the police. Do you think that this contributes to the high rates of deaths amongst Black and brown people?
I am going to give a really controversial answer to that. And I think I am sorry, but the way I see it is that I have been stopped by police myself many times. And I did not get shot or get killed. Once they told me to sit in the back of that car, of the squad car, and I sat there. I was innocent, but I did not refuse to sit there. Point of the matter is that we also, the way we act in our culture in America has caused a mistrust between the cops, the blue and the black. So the police people don't trust us at all. At the same time, there's more crime in areas where we are. And that's a fact. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but there's more crime where we have Black people than where we do not, which is bad. But so the cause of that, I don't know if you want me to get into the detail of what causes that, but it's a fact that there's more crime in the areas we are. So we have a contributing factor that we need to be more ruly, but at the same time, it's because of these other gigantic social factors that cannot be dealt with so quickly. So the economic, equal pay, equal opportunity, that's the cause. It's a national braid that we're trying to share, and the way it's happening is very difficult to share it. But I'll cut it short, and I'll simply say that we have a responsibility, and we can also reduce these kind of atrocities by doing our part, and then the cops and the white people will do their part.
You said, I'm sorry, you said the cops and the white people will do their part?
The cops and the black people will. I am sorry. The cops and the black people need to each of those groups need to do its part.
Okay, I'll have Mukisa. Do you have any comments on that?
Do I have any? What I will partly agree with is the racism and classism, and literally that's all that I'll agree with in Mr. John's statement. I too have been stopped by cops, and it has nothing to do with the over policing. Where I live is one of those over policed neighborhoods, but also I've been followed in different neighborhoods because I don't belong. In terms of certain suburbs here in Chicagoland, and those stories have also come to me. So in terms of, Black people, Black and brown people, and policing and trust building and the relationship between Black and brown people and policing. This was a comment that came up yesterday, which is very important to this discussion, which I'm going to bring up. We need to talk about, not only in terms of laws, but why we're being pulled over. I mean, sometimes it's not just about speeding or your tail light. If people are making money off of sending us to jail, there's a reason. We might be criminals, we might not be, but if there's an order out to send us to jail, we might be targets just so somebody gets that kickback, somebody gets that payout. So at a certain point, you can say, Black people need to do this. Black people need to stop doing these types of behaviors and other types of behaviors, which may be fine. But once again, it's individual versus a system, or, works of a system. Both of these things have and still continue to work together. So I will continue to have a problem where we're always focusing and highlighting individual behaviors of Black people, where when we negate, don't talk about, or ignore, an institution or a system, especially when it comes to, systemic racism, institutional racism. The system's always going to assist, especially if you talk about Black people. Now, I mean, Mr. John, you brought up Trump. The police have been here longer than Trump. The police have been here since they've been slaves, and they will continue to be here. Legislation had to be passed to include, to serve and protect us. So we need to be cognizant. We need to be aware of that history in terms of how they're policing us as people and our communities. So we can do all we can to be law-abiding citizens, but we also need to be aware that at a certain point, it may not matter. I'm telling you, in terms of some of the neighborhoods that I work in, I'm aware where the police are because they're looking for me anyway because they think I don't belong there. Me as a working individual with a career, I don't belong there because I'm Black with an ethnic name. And I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't belong there because I'm Black. And
right,
that's something we have to acknowledge that's something we have to address. I'm doing what I'm supposed to.
Okay, thank you for your passionate message there, Mukisa. Appreciate that. Now the question goes to Kenneth, who yesterday mentioned about the resources that are being taken, aren't being that Black neighborhoods don't particularly need more resources. They need to be more responsible and take matters into their own hands, i.e., picking up garbage, for instance. That was the highlight of the conversation. So I would like him to comment on why and how picking up garbage is related to the crime rate and people's pride in their neighborhoods. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So would you allow me to backtrack just a little bit before I answer that question?
Yes.
So the prior question that you forwarded to Mr. Mutiaba and O'Neill about who is responsible, I strongly agree that with O'Neill that the police institution has to be very responsible for their actions. However, I believe that we as civilians also have a responsibility, right? And the police has a greater responsibility. I don't deny that because they're trained, right? But we as civilians, for example, me as Kenneth, if I should know what to do and how to approach a police officer when I get pulled over. And this should be very useful to a lot of young guys coming up, like young Black guys. Of course, I'm still young, but there's people younger than me, right? The way you respond to a police officer matters so much. It's just a few minutes of a routine police stop. It's not like you're going to be in hell for eternity, right? If this police officer stops you, you need to be a little bit more responsible and take some action that won't escalate the situation. If the guy asks for ID, show him your ID. If you don't have your ID, tell him, I don't have the ID. I can bring it to the courthouse, right? Be confident. You know your rights. If you are a civilian who knows their rights, you don't have to resist arrest. If a police officer says, look, Kenneth, you are under arrest because your registration tags are expired. Oh, there's a warrant out for your arrest. Why do I have to resist arrest? Like John said, I can sit in the back of that squad car and plead the fifth. And then when I get to the police station, I'll call up my lawyer, right? Because some of these deaths, I feel so bad that people like George Floyd have passed away. But to be honest with you, we have to be honest with ourselves sometimes. There's some things that could be avoided just by the way we respond, right?
I have a question to you on that matter before you continue on. If you could answer that for me. You're saying that it's important to be calm and confident while responding to police officers. What about those cases when, like for Breonna Taylor, or even the recent death that just occurred here in Ohio, whereby the lady called the cop for help and he ended up coming and killing her instead, or when, the cops rummage into someone's house and kill her? Are those cases that fall under that you need to be calm, or is it just we pick and choose when to decide?
Okay, that's a great question. I'll answer you like statistically as a person who has done some mathematics, right? There's always outliers to everything, right? So there's some situations that are outliers, right? There's some situations which are completely, I don't know, you can't even explain what happened. That's why it's an outlier, right? But then there are situations which are direct. So the case of Breonna Taylor, right? I'll say that I think the police in Louisville should be blamed more because, first of all, I don't think they had a warrant to go to her place, right? But then there are also some underlying issues that, like, for example, the message I wrote on the forum yesterday, which didn't go down so well. We can't judge people by their past, right? So I don't want to go into all that stuff. However, I believe that for the most cases of routine police stops, it's very good to be cooperative, right? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very, very important for us to cooperate because, you know, I've been pulled over countless times, I'll be honest with you. And, you know, I've gotten away without tickets. I've gotten away, you know, laughing, making jokes with police officers. Your reaction really matters, you know? It matters a lot. Even when, if the police officer asks for your driver's license or insurance, if those two things are in the glove box, right? Just mentioning to the police officer that, look, I'm about to reach for my driver's license or my insurance. That makes a whole lot of difference because just like me as a black guy being scared when I get pulled over by a cop, the cop is also scared
of the black skin, right? Or is he scared? Is it just?
You say what?
Why would the cop be scared of a black guy getting pulled over?
So why would the cop be scared? So first of all, we know that we live in a.
That's the one.
Okay, can I answer the question?
Everybody has a gun.
Yeah, because this is a country where we're armed. Everybody's armed. You don't know, right? Hello, somebody
There's
keeps
so
interrupting me.
many.
I can't speak.
Kenneth,
let's
there are
be
so many.
quiet.
There are so many people from different races, especially the white race, that has more guns than you can imagine black people having guns.
Sure, I agree
But
with
again,
you.
when they are
However,
pulled over, there is a certain reason why they get you pulled over. In this case, we have to ask ourselves, are the pullovers justified? If it's not justified, is it just being done in order to find something to make you a criminal?
okay,
When you
so
are not?
here's the thing, and this is where we go back to, you know what John talked about, the social, whatever the social situation is, like the resources, the poverty, whatever, all that stuff. The statistics will show that more minorities get pulled over for small things like, you know, expired registration tags, broken tail lights, right? Because they may not have the money to fix that stuff. A lot of,
Is this
to
assumed
be
that,
honest,
is this an assumption that police officers, you're saying police officers make?
no. If you have a broken tail light
That
and
they
it's
probably
visible,
have unregistered license plates. Is that something they
No,
see
no,
a
no.
black person, they assume that, or are you saying
no. This is based off real-time data because police officers have computers in their cars, right? So they're gonna run your registration tags, and if they show expired, they're gonna stop you. If they see that your tail light is broken, that's visible, they're gonna stop you, right? Now, there are cases where people are profiled because of their skin color. I don't deny that. It has happened to me too, right? But how do you react in that situation? Sometimes the way you react makes a whole lot of difference.
So don't you feel that those people feel their reaction is coming off feeling that their rights have been violated by being abused
Sure,
by the
Neil.
cops just because of the color of their skin? Because most people they don't just react. I agree.
Sure.
I agree. A cop stops you, asks you for a license. The first question you have to ask them before even you give them your license, you don't have to just give them your license. You have to ask them, why am I pulled over? It's within your right to know why you're getting pulled over.
Sure, O'Neill.
It's
I
like
like your
asking the
question.
cop, am I under arrest? If not, then I have to walk away.
I like your question, and this is how I'm going to answer your question. There's another issue we have in black and brown communities. This is another issue. We don't even know our rights. We don't know our rights. For example, if a police officer tries to arrest you, or tries to stop you, you don't even have to say anything. You can plead the fifth, as simple as that. Did you know that? A lot of people don't. You might know that.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people that don't know that.
We're going to get back to the subject of resources and education in a few minutes.
Okay. All right. Sure.
Elizabeth, before you go, if you could just allow me to butt my head in here a little bit. And because I also have interest in this very topic. And I feel where Kenneth is coming from. It's much as you may feel like your rights are violated, it is important to survive the encounter. For me, that's the bottom line. Survive the encounter. Let us pursue your rights thereafter. There's no, it's like, why should we lose you in that encounter simply because you are choosing to be combative or, trying to argue for your rights right there on the street? I think one would rather survive the encounter, which is what Kenneth is saying, and then enforce your rights thereafter. But again, before I go back into the background, I wanted to point out that thank you very much, guys. Thank you for all you are watching. We are just having a conversation. These are not legal opinions. We're choosing to take different positions, and so that we can bring everything to the surface. To not and do not hold anybody in a grudge with anybody thinking that this is actually what they think. We're just taking different angles from this and trying to bring up a conversation so that we can all benefit, because some of these things we just don't digest properly. Again, thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'm going back into the background.
Okay.
So Elizabeth, you wanted me to answer your question, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Would you mind repeating the question, please?
We were going towards serving and protecting as the job description for police officers, and no different from when doctors are, supposed to not do no harm. They're not supposed to do harm, and if they do some harm, then they suffer the repercussions. Why is it that when we are looking at police officers, the whole entire country, including the conservatives like you and Mr. John, seem to take a lenient approach? And also, how do we go forward?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first of all, I'm not as extremely conservative as you think, but
I'm sorry, you introduced yourself as a conservative. So
just to correct you, this, and I'm glad I brought up this conversation, because I don't even think that anyone had the guts to write that kind of question in the forum. I was playing devil's advocate. I'm glad I'm in this position. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Like, I don't know, police officers have to be held responsible for their actions, just like doctors have to be held responsible for their actions. But when you're a patient and you go to see a doctor, right? That doctor usually the doctor is gonna start out based on what you tell the doctor. Based on how you feel. Based on how you're feeling. I'm going to interrupt.
We're going to do an interactive here, just so we make sure we're on the same page, right? So just as a doctor, so police officers are called in to serve. Like, I call a cop to help me out, and I shouldn't die because I called the cop to help, correct?
Sure.
Okay, just continue. Go ahead.
So, okay, here's what I'm trying to say, right? Just like Robert said earlier, surviving the encounter matters a lot, right? So a lot of people are going to react to you regardless of what profession. I've seen this, and Mukisa said yesterday in the forum that she's a healthcare worker, and she sees that a whole lot of her associates, her fellow workers, are trying so hard to connect with the patients, right? So hard, right? But we will also agree that sometimes, if let's say you're a nurse or a doctor, there's some patients that are hard to connect with, right? Based on how they're dealing with you, based on what kind of energy they're giving you or vibe.
But you still treat them, right? You still treat them. You don't kill them. You still treat them.
You're still going to treat them.
You don't treat them with negligence. You take care of them, right?
Sure, you're still going to treat them, but because
that's your job. Because that's your job, right?
Elizabeth, give me some time to finish up, please.
Okay.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. When you're talking to a doctor or a nurse, they ask you, "How are you feeling today?" You say, "I have a headache. I have a cold. I'm shivering a little bit. I'm feeling like I want to throw up," and then they'll start making assessments based off how you're feeling and what you said, right? Something with a police officer, right? Police officer pulls you over, right? And then sometimes you might be in the wrong. Sometimes it could be in a useless stop, a stop that shouldn't have been made, right? But based on the energy you're giving that officer, the energy level is either gonna go up or going to go down, right? Now, granted, there's bad cops. There's cops that always use force, right? That have a history of force. Like Mr. Chauvin, Mukisa said he had 19 complaints, right? So, but I think that for most reasonable cops, right? If the cop pulls me over and I respond in a civilian way, in a civil manner, that cop is gonna de-escalate. You have to help him de-escalate the situation too. He's a
You have to
human
help
as
him.
well.
You, as the person who called him for help, have
Just
to
like you
him.
help, just like you help your doctor kind of understand your sickness or your illness, you kind of have to help the cop too. If I start yelling and trying to threaten and all that stuff, this thing is gonna go nuts really quickly.
Okay, so do you have any
And
responses
by the
towards that?
way, I'm sorry, I was gonna add to what he said. By the way, if you really, really want to be nasty, they give you your ticket or whatever they are doing. Those guys can withstand a lot of stuff you can say. You can say anything you want. I mean, if it makes you feel better, you can cuss them, you can do whatever. They're not going to do anything. As long as you've got your ticket, now it's up to you to say whatever you want. You're a racist, oh man, you're such and such. They won't do anything to you. But don't
when
fight.
you've been calm. That's when you've been calm, right? They won't do anything when you haven't questioned them, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you have any responses to that?
Oh, do I? Okay, so using my analogy, willy-nilly. Okay, let's start from the top. Okay, so in using my analogy, this it goes into why I disagree and also the way forward. Going into my analogy as a healthcare worker, full disclosure, I'm a certified pharmacy tech. I've been so for 8 years. Now, the reason why I use the analogy, I used it to illustrate not only what's wrong with the status quo of policing, but in terms of some of my ideas of the way forward. Now, first of all, when I talk about building the trust, not only me as a pharmacy technician working with patients right now, I work as a medication history technician. Basically, what I do, I verify the medication history of patients, but also in various other jobs that I've had as a pharmacy tech, I've had to work with patients. I work with other, healthcare professionals. Now I work with doctors, I work with nurses. They engage and talk to patients of all walks of life all day. All they do is interface with people, connect with them, whatever they need to do to support them in their journey of wellness. And of course, getting to know a person, building some type of trust to, support them in getting well. My problem, which I did talk about in the group chat, in our community group chat, is I don't see that happening specifically in Black and Brown communities with the police. We started this live a little bit with an introduction in terms of police that I also disagree with, in terms of police officers living in our communities. They don't. The vast majority of police officers don't live in the communities they serve and protect. And that's also a part of the problem in terms of building trust. CAPS meetings once a month, if that, don't build trust in terms of, you know, Black and brown communities. Do you know the people that you're serving and protecting? You probably don't. And that might contribute to the implicit biases and or outright racism you have about the people, you know, you're watching and patrolling when you're on beat. But in terms of also the issues that I have making the analogy in terms of being a pharmacy technician, in terms of, I hate to use reform, but in terms of changing things, you know, scrapping what we have, starting over, is accountability, especially independent accountability in terms of policing. Me as a pharmacy technician, as well as a lot of other healthcare professionals, we're one and done. If I make a mistake in my profession, or if I commit a crime, the Illinois Board of Pharmacy will take my license. My certification is done. I need to find something else to do with my life. I have to find another profession. I have to find another career. My issue is people like Derek Chauvin still exist with known complaints. There's no sense of accountability, not only in terms of the system. You know, we're talking about a municipality in a city. We're talking about state accountability. We're even talking about federal accountability. You can't go to the Department of Justice and say, okay, how many police departments shot a gun and killed somebody in 2020? You can't ask for those statistics. People are keeping count of these statistics on their own. And even in terms of issues, you know, in terms of gun violence in cities, people have to request that information. The video is not just out there, you know, by request. You know, the city police departments keep this under lock and key until it's actually requested by families, or, you know, in some cases, you know, news journalists, whomever it is who found out about issues and wants to bring this to light so everyone knows about it and gets really mad. That's why we always find out about issues of police brutality and violence months later, because there's no transparency and there's no accountability. And this is also why I have it. I'm really done. And this is why I also have an issue in terms of it's only a few bad apples, and in terms of institutional issues, is because if it was just a few bad apples, we could pick them out and hold them accountable. This is a systemic issue that we need to correct. We need to just get rid of it, start over, and qualified immunity, and start holding these people accountable, because these good cops know what these bad cops are doing. They're complicit in what these cops are doing in terms of these complaints and these violence. And of course, they need to be held accountable. We need to have a better system of accountability. If you're saying a doctor can make a lethal mistake and that's his license, and a cop can make not even one lethal mistake, but several lethal mistakes, and he's still on the force, he still has access to his pension, he's still carrying a gun, and he can kill other people, I have a big problem with that.
I want to respond to that. Can I respond to that, Ms. Moderator, real quickly? Because I like it that Ms. Mukisa was able to come back and actually get on our side, that we all have a responsibility. We need to get on the school boards. We need to do our part. So I'm glad that you are pointing that out, because if we don't change, if you want to see change, you got to start with yourself. So we have to start with ourselves before we can make others change. And there's a lot we can do. And I totally agree with you coming on our side and saying that what we do will help make that difference.
Okay, so we're going to start wrapping it up because it's getting a little bit late. I want to
Do
hear.
you want to set time limits? Because I think some people are taking too long.
We're gonna start wrapping it up. So if you have your closing arguments there, Mr. John, we're gonna give everybody has like one or
1 minute.
minute and 30 seconds to you know, speak your mind, speak your truth, as they say.
All right.
You can start off, Mr. John, and feel free.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to address our people here. I believe that there's a lot we can do as a people to help. I mean, I'm going to point out things that are probably not very good for some people to hear. We have all these communities in Africa, in South America, everywhere we are, and we're having issues of policing, of poverty, of those things we need to start working out. I know that we can't always be saying that somebody's doing this. I think we need to own up. If we have a lot more police, it's for a reason. I have been in environments where that place where Chauvin killed somebody. I used to be there, and I had this security system, and every now and then I would be sitting at work typing away, and the security company would call me and say, hey, somebody's trying to get in your house, and then I would have to drive all the way to Minneapolis from St. Paul to see what was going on because somebody had, set off the security system. So we have to play our part. I don't mean that we need to be killed for some of these simple things, but we will reduce that if we become, if we analyze ourselves and look internally and start that change from inside. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And thank you all the people who have contributed in the forum and also those who contributed yesterday on the forum.
Thank you for your wisdom, Mr. John. We can go to the next panelist. Mr. O'Neill, please be free to talk, speak your mind, speak your truth, say what you need to say, encourage us, or teach us something new.
No, I just want to point out the actual police and criminal justice system here in the U.S. I think if you look at the history, much of this is all embedded into systemic racism all the way from back in the Jim Crow eras. If you want to talk about the war on drugs, all this is done by the police, right? So I think if we look at it, we can agree that they haven't been the best in terms of doing their job, and I think they have to change. The whole system has to be overhauled. I think we need to have more new laws written, at least to protect the people and start protecting the cops in general. Cities, as Mukisa said, right now Chauvin can still retire with $1 million at the age of 50, and then $1.5 million from his pension if he goes up to 55. It's very surprising that a criminal like him could actually still be able to live with about $50,000 a year as payoff from his pension. It's very surprising. I think the whole system needs to be overhauled, and then kind of stop demilitarizing the police. Yes. They have to do that. They have to demilitarize the police. Right now, all these people coming from the military, the first thing they have to do, I don't know what happened to the GI Bill that used to educate, give them money for education and everything. Much of it is now police, right? So for them, they are used to the rules of engagement. And that's why society right now is having a problem with that.
Okay, thank you there, Mr. O'Neill, for your insights. We truly appreciate them. Now we'll go on to listening to Kenneth and hearing what he has to say on the matter. Speak your truth, Kenneth. Say what you need to say and make peace.
Okay. All right. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for taking the time to be on the panel, and to thank Mr. Kigundu for organizing this, and to also thank everybody that has tuned in. I think I saw Molly and David tuned in, so that's impressive. I don't know who else tuned in, but I'm sure all of you are there. Just to conclude, from my point of view, I will say that, first of all, I think that Derek Chauvin deserves some punishment for his actions. I don't think it should be a very harsh punishment like what he's supposed to get, like what he's about to get. And I also agree with O'Neill that we need police reforms and police laws that can actually the police more effective to prevent death and injury to civilians. However, like John said, I want to go back to John's point. We need to look at ourselves internally. We as human beings, especially people of color, we need to look at ourselves. What are we doing as people to prevent these things from happening? How are we reacting to situations? Parents, what are parents? People that have children, what are they teaching their children? Are they telling them the police is bad while they're coming up? Are they teaching them how to react to the police in case you get pulled over? Because just a parent telling their son or their daughter what to do in a police encounter makes a big difference, And so I think we as a community, we as minorities, also have a part to play. We can't always we can throw the blame, we can cast the blame, but we also have to look at ourselves as people. What are we doing? And what can we do better to make sure these police encounters are not deadly, don't result in death or injury, right? We need to educate ourselves. We need to learn the law, just the basics of the law, because knowing the basics of the law can protect you from so many things, Our families need to do, parents need to do better teaching their kids how to react, things like that, simple things like that. So I believe that both sides need some kind of reform. It shouldn't be one-sided. The blame shouldn't be cast on only one side. Although police has a greater responsibility to seconds, we as minorities have to do our part as well. Thank you.
As minorities only? Everybody needs to do it.
Elaborate, please.
So, no, we'll talk later, Kenneth. We're gonna go on to listening to last and foremost, Mukisa. And listen to what you have to say. Speak your truth and educate or inform us.
I am very happy to be here amongst everyone. I'm glad to hear what everyone has to say, especially in this time to really pause, reflect, speak your truth. Happy to see everyone here. I leave you all with this. The best individual is no match against the worst system. There's no reason cops should be given freely their pension while teachers have to fight for it. I hope that in the future that we will all work together to make sure that we build the best communities, we have the best systems, because all of this is on our money. There's no reason why we should be paying and seeing us die. We need to have the resources that we should have in our communities, and that shouldn't be because of how much I make or someone else makes down the street or 20 miles away. And in closing, I say, defund the police, pay the schools, mental health for everyone. Thank you and good night.
All right. So again, thank you all, my nice,
I
well-educated.
should have had the last word. Oh my goodness, that's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
you
had too many words, Kenneth. You had too many words.
you got to create another Uganda over here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, defund the police? No,
Elizabeth
no, no, no,
stop
no,
and
no,
say
no.
talk later.
We
Thank you,
cannot
my
defund the
panelists.
police. We will be living in a tropical jungle, my friend.
Yeah.
But okay,
All of us
let's
will die.
clarify.
Can't even be a tropical jungle. Stop with your cliches, Kenneth. Please leave me.
Now it's a
I'm
free
serious. I mean,
conversation
No,
Nikki,
now.
I
sir.
can tell who studied geography. How is North America gonna even be a tropical jungle? Really? Like, come on.
No.
Be
This
serious.
is not. I'm not being. I don't know. I'm not. English is not my first language, but I don't know how to to describe it. I'm not being direct. I'm trying to use like what's the word?
No.
I'm being indirect.
And I'm being
Metaphor or
being serious with you. I'm not saying abolish the police, which means completely get rid of. I'm saying they don't need as much money as they're getting. That's what I'm saying.
English.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
So
They
you're
should
agreeing
rechannel
with
some-
what I'm saying, like I said.
No, I agree they should rechannel some money to the police, but we cannot entirely
Which is-
defund the police. When I want
Did
people
I
to walk
say
down the street.
entirely
Do you know how many
defund?
bad
They
people
need
are
less
out there
money.
that are ready to act?
It is
There
a
are people
risky
out there
job.
ready to do the
All
right
right,
thing.
all right. Sounds like Elizabeth.
Usually you
I don't
get
think
paid
we,
according to how much risk you're taking on. So the
we may
police,
go on and on.
the
Elizabeth.
police,
Yeah.
they take
Let
on
me
too
just-
much risk.
Let me just end with some closing remarks here. I see that we all agree that individually we all have a responsibility for our own behaviors, and that police officers they must serve and protect and do the job that they are assigned to do, and that some of us learned that police officers do get a pension even after they have been stripped of their job, whereas our educators, our teachers, our nurses, healthcare workers don't get a pension. When they retire, they can lose their pension just as easily. For teachers, our educators, these are the people who educate our society. And if this is the fact that there is a problem that we all should kind of think about on our own. I see David has a question on here. He hasn't posted it.
That's right. David, would you please type that question for us so we can see if you can?
Yeah, but while he does that, we have to think and ponder about what is fair and what is not, what is just and what is not. And when we look at our education system here in the United States of America, the fact that teachers don't get a pension or a fair pension, and when you look at the cops who monitor those neighborhoods, it's like, what's happening here? And then you have the schools, education systems being shut down in Chicago. But here we are, the most policed, right? When the same system shuts down a school and doesn't provide for the teachers, how do we expect to educate the society on how to even interact with cops? Do you see the problem there? Some things I noticed as I'm no longer a moderator. So I'm just pointing out some small things that everyone spoke about that, and question you guys for future discussion, perhaps, maybe can start from there. And yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, all of you, for being great game. I was doing some work while I was popping into the chat because I could see that obviously some real heated exchange was going on. And I'm glad you all accepted my offer and invitation to come here into the show and my studio. Thank you very, very much for your interest into this subject matter, because it it is a very important topic. And I personally, and I've always said, like I said before, let us find a way of surviving the encounter, and then we can pursue our rights thereafter. Do we need to do some reforms, police reforms? Absolutely. Do we need to eliminate the police department? No, I don't think so. Do we...
No, we don't.
No,
We
no, no,
don't.
absolutely. I don't. I think the chaos would
I
be too
like
much.
it.
But let me also mention that this was just a conversation. We were just reacting to what happened in Minneapolis because, just like everybody else, we are not legal experts. I did talk to a member in the community who is a lawyer, and she said she's going to try one day and see if we can bring in an actual legal expert to help us, dissect some of these things because many in the
Can bring a
community.
police officer too.
Oh, and actually, yeah, that's right. Actually, bring in a police officer so that we can hear from that side as well. That would be very helpful for everybody as we all live here, and we have to live, and we have to have law enforcement. It's important, no doubt about it. But we also want to be safe. We don't want them to be doing harm to us. We want them to serve and protect us. But thank you so much. I think David asked his question. Let's see. He says, we can all be respectful to police officers, but one thing we forget or we do not know depends on neighborhoods you're caught in and stopped. I think he's making a very important point that I don't know if anybody wants to respond to him, but that is real reality. It shouldn't be that way, but that's a reality.
As a black person, as it's particular, as a black person, black brown person, white people, even if they get to a black neighborhood, maybe the harm they might get is if it's a high crime neighborhood, then they could possibly get shot, which we have not heard of. But in a black person goes into a white neighborhood, you're gonna be questioned.
Yeah,
the cops there, the cops there serve that neighborhood, know everyone in that neighborhood, so you're most likely gonna be a target. So just be careful if you're not now, if you're a regular in that white neighborhood, then they know you. They must have seen you because you're the only black person. But it doesn't work the other way around.
In most cities and most communities, cops don't police their own communities. So they don't really know whether you live there or not. So you might still be living there and they would still stop you because you're black and you're in a white neighborhood. But again, they don't know down the street, 2 homes down the street, that's where your house is. There was a guy I saw that got pulled over and stopped for taking out his garbage.
Yeah.
So all those things happen basically. I think police should police its own neighborhood. That's it. If you don't live in the neighborhood, you don't police it. Chicago used to do it with the fire police. The fire department.
That's the point. That's the point, though. But here's the thing: police has a staffing problem. I don't know if you've driven in Chicago lately, but they have billboards trying to hire police officers, like join Chicago PD, right? They have a staffing problem, right?
No, they don't.
Here's the thing.
No, they have a hiring problem.
Yes, they have a hiring problem.
Let me finish up, right? Let me finish up. The qualifications to be a police officer, right? It's weird, but there's a lot of people that don't even meet the qualification to be a police officer. Like when they run your record, because for example, pardon me.
What's required to be a police officer?
I didn't get you there.
What's required to be a police officer?
Well, I think you need to have a clean record.
Criminal justice kind of.
That's one of the
requirements. But don't you think that's deliberate?
But so, for example, like
Kenneth, don't you think that is deliberate?
It is deliberate. They have a problem with the hiring.
Deliberate. Why?
No, like the fact is that, let's say in a neighborhood of Chicago, they won't be able to hire people there because they've over-policed them to the point that they probably have a background check. If they won't pass a background check for some petty crime, which is like, for instance, selling weed. Everybody in Black and smoked all the weed, all the pot, and even though it's legal now, they can't be hired to work as a cop. And
You know
even
what?
cops
I think I
themselves
should go to
smoking.
bed.
Okay. All right.
Deliberate. It was
Thank you.
deliberate.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you
Give up.
all. Thank you, Elizabeth, for doing this. And I think we're going to
Moderator.
do this again, and we're going to
One of you has to be a
bring in some
moderator.
other experts, a police,
Someone else
and
has
also
to
a
be a
legal
moderator
person.
next time.
Yeah, we will. Maybe we'll get O'Neill to do the
I
moderation.
will be.
Yes.
Yeah, someone else.
Yeah.
I'm ready to talk.
Yeah, exactly. I think I muzzled you somehow by thrusting into that position. I realized that. So next time you will be, free to speak. But thank you very much for doing this for us today. Thank you all for coming. Let me end by just a little entertainment. Surprise. Isn't she?
Yeah.
Isn't she great? She does all this.
She
That's
is.
great. Yeah. Thank you so much, you all, and you have a great night.
You too.
Right.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, a thank you to you all from California. So thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.